Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Issei had female Vali as his girlfriend part 1. Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Nefarious doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Collapsed on the couch and released a tired groan. Finally done with school and graduated early. I wish I could have invited Kiba over so we could have a small celebration, but I think he needs some time to rest, especially since we were swamped with hundreds of contract callings. It's been months since the Battle of Trahixa, and since then many things have changed. Riaz and Akeno were in college, so they really didn't see each other often. Asia, Irina, Zenobia and Kaneko were busy with their everyday school lives, but for some reason acted rather cold to the dragon lately. Asper stayed by Valiel's side until she woke up. Kiba and Tsubaki were finally together, and a party was thrown by surprisingly Sona herself. She was tired of the drama between them, so she literally pushed her queen into Kiba as the two shared their first dot. Vali and his team were called by Azazel to help out with some of the issues that came up, especially with organizations that still supported the old Mao faction. Ravel was called back by her mother to discuss the plans for the future of the Phoenix family, since sadly, the older son Ruvel died protecting the city from the army. Roswis was called back to Asgard to verify that the seals would be permanent. Issei and Kiba were promoted to ultimate class status because of their accomplishments and their skills that they have shown in battle. The two were happy that they've achieved their goals, and Kiba asked Sona if he could have Tsubaki as his queen. Sona was happy for her friend and went with it. It was a loss that Tsubaki left the student council when she entered college, but the members were happy that Tsubaki finally found love from the man she admired. Surprisingly, Issei didn't trade any of his pieces with Riaz or Lady Phoenix. Issei realized that he wanted to build his peerage from scratch, just like the other Maus did with their peerages, but he was willing to enter a marriage contract with Ravel, stating that when she graduated from Kuo Academy, then if she wished to marry him, then he would or wait as long as he needed to until she felt comfortable. Lady Phoenix and Ravel agreed to the terms. Ravel was happy that she could still be with the man she loved. Not in his peerage but by his side as his future wife. Riaz, Asia and Zenobia were surprised but accepted it nonetheless. Roswis entered a marriage contract with him after she had gotten drunk and confessed her love for him, while Issei tried to get her sober again. That Valkyrie really couldn't hold her alcohol. Issei was happy today for two reasons. 1. Riaz agreed to go out on a date with him because he had exciting news. And 2. He was waiting for a letter from Tokyo University since he studied his ass off trying to make sure he had all of the information down so he could pass. It was thanks to a contract in a city called Shinto Teito. The woman who contacted him was a widow that lost her husband, and Issei found her mesmerizing. Her long purple hair and her warm aura just made him relax in an instant. He was content with just being there and talking with her and some of the other guests that lived there. Matsu was a funny and perverted girl whom Mia called perverted glasses for a reason. The two got along well and had some funny times that were interrupted by Mia's dark aura. Yuzum was what Issei would call the human version of Kuroka, since Yuzum acted like a cat most of the time by either sleeping or eating all day. She was suffering a loss from a lover that died in the hospital. Issei knew how losing someone you loved meant, so he was able to comfort and help her with her loss. Kagari was definitely a mystery since there were times when he acted like a boy but then acted like a girl by making a few small advances and made a few accidents which resulted with him on the top. Matsu had a nosebleed every time she saw this but was stopped by one of Mia's deadly moves. The deadly frying pan or the terrifying ladle. Yuzum laughed at this but was stopped by Mia's glare. All in all, the four were definitely people he would call his closest friends, and the dragon has developed a crush which turned into love for the women Yuzum and Mia. They all helped him when he was prepping for the entrance exam and was nervous but confident in himself. He thanked all of them for his help and would tell them the news once he received the letter. Which is why when a letter was pushed into the mansion, Issei ran to it and ripped open the top of the letter. Dear Mr. Haidu, we would like to formally congratulate you on being one of the selected few to enter Tokyo University. The next semester will be starting in 2 weeks, so be prepared for your first semester. Sincerely, Tokyo University. Issei read it again to make sure it wasn't a trick or illusion. Drake, talk to me. The dragon laughs and responds. You did it, partner. I'm proud of you. Issei had a small smile that turned to a giant grin as he laughed in excitement. He stopped to realize that he needed to call them and let them know the good news. Izumo in. Mia was sweeping the front porch until she heard the phone go off. She went to the phone and picked it up. Hello Izumo in. Hey Mia, it's me Issei. Her eyes widened. She looked around to see if anyone was watching her. Realizing she was alone, she relaxed. Hello Issei. How are you doing today? Issei loves hearing her voice. Great, and I have amazing news. I got in. Mia covered the speaker and released an excited cheer before calming herself and put the phone to her ear. That's wonderful. Are you going to come live in the inn? We still have a room available for you. She made a mental note to let Kagari know since she was reacting to him. Big time. The poor thing kept tossing and turning because of the call and her condition. If Issei showed up, Kagari would jump him and wing herself to him in an instant. That would be wonderful. I just wanted to let you know because I was going to come later in the evening since I plan on taking Riaz out on a date and let her know of the news. Hearing about the spoiled brat left a sour taste in her mouth. Mia was one who enjoyed working hard, and if there's one thing she hates more than MBI, it's freeloaders like a certain scumbag by the name of Seo. Said scumbag sneezed thinking someone was talking about him. Mia heard of Riaz from Issei and asked Matsu to find anything in the girl. Only to find out that she was a rich, spoiled brat who was basically handed everything to her by her brother and father. Never actually worked hard or trained in her life, and Issei had to do everything that the king should have done from the beginning, and yet a pawn was able to do more than a king. That's just sad. She hesitated, putting the phone to her ear again as she growled at the thought of the brat putting her filthy hands on a kind soul like Issei. That's wonderful news. I hope she takes it well. Her right fist had blood spilling out a bit. Thanks, Mia. I want to thank you for giving me the courage and strength I needed when I felt like giving up. I wish I had met Teito when he was alive. I bet he was a great man for having a lovely wife such as you. It warmed Mia's heart after hearing those words. She was actually reacting to him and wanted to confess her feelings for him, but there was a certain crimson-haired girl that posed a problem. I wish Issei could see how the girls really feel about him. Little did she know fate changed for the dragon, and the events that were about to transpire would mark the birth of a new dragon and a new Issei. A king who rules Shinto Teito. Issei was going to the college Riaz and Akeno attended so he could pick her up after her final class was over. What's taking her so long? Riaz said that she would have been available and that she had no help classes or meetings she was supposed to attend. Issei was surprised and decided to call her. He waited until it went to voicemail and then he was shocked again. It's not like Riaz to have her phone off even after class. Maybe Akeno. He tried Akeno but still nothing. Okay, that's creepy beyond measure. He looked in the school and decided to walk in and see what's up. He walked around and hoped to see even a trace of the crimson or purple-haired woman, but they weren't in any of their classes. Issei made his way to Ria's homeroom and sat at her desk. So this is a college classroom and desk. He looked around the room and didn't feel uncomfortable. He was about to get up when he noticed something shiny on the desk. He opened the desk to grab Ria's cell phone. He looked around and then back at the phone. One peek couldn't hurt. He typed in Ria's password. Typical. Using the last name. He saw her phone calls and noticed the recents. She's been talking to a member of her class. It was shown that she ignored any calls and blocked Issei's messages. Strangely, Akeno's phone was on her desk, dangling on its side. Her phone had the exact same phone number that Riaz had been talking to. She even ignored his calls and messages. I don't get it, why hide this from me? I'm going to find out who this guy is and what's the relationship between the three. He went to a teacher and asked about the phone number that Riaz and Akeno had been calling to find out if it belonged to one of the seniors. Ryuji was his name. He was asked to grade some papers but hasn't shown up yet. There was a room that he enjoyed going to when he needed some quiet when working on assignments. Issei thanked the teacher and made his way while using a cloak spell, thanks to Drake, to hide his presence. He made his way to the front door and used his finger to open it a bit more until he saw something he wished he never saw. Sitting on the biggest couch in the room were the two women he was looking for. But both of them were leaning their entire weight upon the man he saw before, with a blush on his cheeks and a stupid smile on his face. Both women were wrapping themselves around him like a snake about to eat their prey. Their eyes were filled with happiness and enjoyment. The kind of happiness he had seen when he made Akeno reconcile with her father and when he declared his love to Riaz in the Orc. Riaz, Akeno. I mean, I know you both like me, but please, not here. We need to check some papers as well as pass them to our professors. The man talked as he blushed. We can do this tomorrow. After all, I promised to go on a date with both of you. The man said towards the two women at both sides of him, pride filled his voice and a smile adorned his face. How could he not be like that? Two of the most beautiful women he ever laid eyes upon were fighting for him. Answering his question, Akeno spoke up in a flirty voice. Akeno hummed seductively. What are you talking about, Ryuji? You want this as much as we wanted. So, let's take a break, Akeno muttered the last words with a sensual voice that made the now named Ryuji blush even more. Gathering courage, Ryuji decided to go for it. But before something could happen, an angry voice was heard right behind him. He listened to the furious voice of the other woman by his side. Akeno. What do you think you're doing, trying to seduce him in front of me? Angrily, Rhea stepped in before he could try something. Feeling scared of her, he did not do a thing, he just sat there, not moving a muscle. Then she said with a voice filled with quality. "I will show you who is the best among us, Ryuji." The woman started to move. She was slowly showing her well-endowed curves, making Ryuji swallow his spit. But before he managed to achieve her goal, a voice was heard, said voice being Akeno. "Ara, Rhea's trying to get on him without me? Sorry, but I will not let you." Throwing herself at him, she stopped the advances of the red-haired. He fell onto the couch, Akeno on top of him in a really easy to misunderstand position. Rhea's, so as not to fall onto the ground, quickly stood up. On seeing the image in front of her, she was filled with anger and fury. "Akeno. If you do not stop now, I will have to get him off you by force. You know I love him. So why do you always want the same thing as I do?" With a nice smile on her face, Rhea screamed, anger clearly visible in her eyes. Her emotion slowly changed her eyes into a red color. Ryuji felt a chill run up his spine and started to sweat bullets, but Akeno didn't even hesitate. What do you mean by saying that I want him just because you love him?" He was the first guy I met who didn't have a disgusting look in his eyes. He did not look at me like a piece of meat, really kind as well. Just look at him, he is manly, good-looking, and doesn't look at me like a piece of trash would. How could I not fall for him? With a serious tone of voice, the black-haired woman spoke up. Not knowing how impactful her words were in the good sense and the bad sense. Rhea felt her blood boil at those words, but she knew she was right. That was also one of the many reasons why she fell in love with Ryuji. Calming herself down, she looked at them clear-headed. Something that surprised at both in front of her. She let out a long breath of air, trying to calm herself down before she did something stupid. Once relaxed, she looked at both of them, especially at Akeno, and said with a resolute voice. But for a brown-haired boy, it sounded sharp, merciless, and dug straight into his heart. Through the fact that he isn't a pervert or drools over merely our side is truly a blessing. Her voice is calm and sharp. Much better than any man I had ever met, that's for sure. She asserted. It's also true that he is manly, decisive, and kind. These are also a few of the reasons I love him. But first and foremost is the fact that he is not dumb, naive, pervert like someone Akeno and I know. Akeno furrowed her brows at the remembrance of that man. Certainly compared to anyone else, especially to him, he truly is above in all aspects. Especially in the looks department. Akeno's voice was flirty at the end. I have to concur that him not being a dumb pervert or a maniac obsessed with S is the greatest blessing we could have. Finishing the comment of Rhea's, Akeno spoke with a cold voice. Unknowingly how much damage had her words done to someone. Also, it's nice for him to understand our intentions and not to explain them with a big sign over our heads. I'm glad you figured them out, Ryuji. Truly something I want in the future for the man I love, Rhea's told him. Well, let's keep going. I need you if you want me to do the work. It's quite late and the work needs to be done, so, Ryuji putting her forward, she begged for the dot. Answering her, he stood up from the couch and walked towards the red-haired beauty. Leaving a pouty Akeno on the couch. Quickly stealing her, he had Rhea's. The sound of connecting was the only thing that could be heard. But that scene was something that was burned into the mind of our spectator. That scene of Rhea singing that man made the brown-haired boy empty. He truly didn't understand why. Was it because of the words both of them had said about him? Was it truly because he was a fool, a pervert, naive and dumb? His thought stopped when he looked back to the scene of the dot, but this time with eyes devoid of any light, like those of a corpse. They quickly became more intoxicating. Tongues started to fight a battle for dominance. After a while, the woman broke and she was in need of air. But she felt that compared to someone he wasn't that good of an ear. Getting rid of the thought, she quickly looked over to him. Only to be taken by surprise when Akeno jumped towards him and at him even more fervently. She was more daring than Rhea's, of that he was sure. Quickly breaking them, Akeno said. You who are really quite the charmer, aren't you? To make Rhea's ask for it is quite impressive. But I will show you who is the bester among us two. She leaned forward, she was searching for him. She had him for the third time, but she felt something was missing from the. However, she became more passionate. Being a sadist, she took control of the battlefield really fast. But she decided to break it before the red-haired got jealous and tried something. That will make her feel even more competitive. Ryuji felt extremely good. He just had two beauties. Two of the most beautiful women he had ever seen in his life. He turned towards the clock sitting at his desk, 5:30 p.m. The time they spent talking and singing was too much. Now they only had 30 minutes before their deadline. Sprinting towards his desk, he decided to start working as fast as he could. Noticing that, Akeno and Rhea's also looked at the clock and quickly started to fill papers in. Thinking of a certain boy, but erasing the thought. They concentrated on the task before the deadline arrived. Issei was shocked as he ran, away from the school, away from them. He stopped when he reached the park. The same park where he was killed and his introduction of the supernatural. It was so quiet and sunny. No one was in sight. It was peaceful, pure bliss. He thought back to what they said, and it cut deeper than any blade or spell that he took for them. Why, just what did I do? Why do I deserve this? He started to mentally break down. Was it because I'm a pervert? A fool and naive being? Was it because I was kind to others? Alright, stop right there. The dragon quickly made its appearance. Do not think like that. I do not know why they did it, but I know it wasn't because you were kind. So don't think like that. Drake told him. He hated how his possessor and friend ended up like this. He wanted to help him, but he couldn't do much. Just support him. Drake, why do you say that? You also heard them? You also saw them? So please tell me why. He wanted answers. The image of the girls and Ryuji came to his mind. Why are they doing that without her? Furious, Issei asked Drake. I don't know why they did what they did. But I do know that it wasn't because you were kind. He explained. Sure, you were dumb and a pervert, but that can be fixed. No one was born knowing everything, no one was born perfect. He told his partner with a serious tone. About your pervertedness, you can control and dominate it. If you are not manly, then buff up. If you're not handsome, then change your style until you find yourself good looking. His voice was filled with pride, the pride of a dragon. Everyone has an opinion. To some people you may be like that, but to others, the ones that truly care for you, you're completely different. Don't let their words reach you. Prove them wrong with your actions, show them what you truly are. A dragon. He roared those last words. The motivational words spoken from Drake truly did reach him, his crying stopped. He looked up to the dark sky, seeing the clouds slowly move further and further away. He sat there on his bench for a while until the sun set down. A few hours later. After all this time spent thinking, he found out that the words of Drake were right. Even if they went with other people, to another man, he still had others. Girls that truly loved him. Even though it hurt him far too much to accept it. After all, if you give up on life, then life will give up on you. You will only sink further and further inside the mud. Thanks, Drake. I really needed that. He told his friend. You're right, even if they think like that. So what? I still have others that do not think like them. It's impossible for everyone around me to think as they do. He finally regained his confidence. The dragon could hear his voice, now it sounded better. But before saying anything, he felt some strong auras near them. Quickly, partner, hide. I feel multiple strong presences coming towards this place. I'll help you in hiding your aura. Flinching at the comment of the dragon, he hid behind his bench in the bush he earlier inspected. Slowly but surely, he heard voices. It was kind of late, around 6 p.m., so finding someone at this time in the park was rather odd. Hearing the voices closing in, he recognized them, but the topic of their conversation was something that made him feel uncomfortable. Thankfully they didn't hear him. Hey Asia, what do you think of these? Quite beautiful, right? The boy I like gifted them to me. Beautiful, aren't they? That voice was of Irina Shidu, the childhood friend of Issei. She was happily jumping around with over 100 roses on her hands, carefully ordered in a couple of bouquets. Answering instead of Asia, Zenobia talked. Why do you feel so prideful? Isn't that a sin? You'll fall, you know, Irina. Besides, he gifted them to you so that you could agree to become his girlfriend. Zenobia quickly countered Irina. True, but Ryudro is so sweet, nice, and gentlemanly. Besides, he always spends time with me, I love him. Her voice sounded sweet and dreamy. The blush was on her cheeks. She was bringing both hands towards her face, trying to cover her blush. Looking at her, Asia said. Irina-san, Zenobia-san. It's true that the gifts were beautiful, but still I do not think you should keep saying it. Both of you have boyfriends and I believe that if Ryudro-san and Saoji-san were to hear you they would start fighting. Shyly talking, Asia gave her own advice. Both of them screamed at the same time. They realized that her words were true. Even though they are brothers, they are extremely competitive towards each other. Last time they barely stopped them. Changing the subject of the talk, Zenobia quickly teased Asia. Oh. So Asia, what about Ken? You two have been quite lovey-dovey recently. Doesn't he help you with the club work? Also, there's a rumor that says that the two of you were holding hands and evening. So is it true? Skillfully, Zenobia asked Asia. Getting the constant nods of an excited Irina. Well just she made a mess thanks to that comment. Yes, those rumors are actually true. Asia answered with honesty despite a red face. Suddenly the fourth figure accompanying them spoke up. Asia senpai daring. She was a short white-haired girl, she was eating her candy, and her voice was almost without a trace of emotion. In response Asia went even redder and hid behind Zenobia. True Kaneko-chan, but don't you also have someone? If my memory isn't wrong, someone from the same year but from a different class. I believe his name was Hijama. Taken by surprise by Zenovia's sudden remark, Kaneko widened her little eyes. How do you know about that? Stuttering in her response, Kaneko blushed. So the rumor was true. You were like the youngest brother of Saoji and Ryutaro. Irina started with a face full of surprise. Kaneko just nodded and confirmed the rumors. While continuing their walk, Irina made a question that made the hidden brown-haired boy react. Suo. What do you like about Kaneko-chan? She answered at a speed faster than a knight's. He is no pervert. I hate perverts. Especially perverted senpai. He's the worst of the worst, real scum. WSHH. Quite the rude words towards Ice-kun there. But I have to agree. I hate how he's always thinking about doing something perverted. Give me the creep. She had a face filled with slight disgust. Don't be that cruel towards Ice. Those words made Issei smile slightly. At least, someone cared about him and didn't spit behind his back. However, that smile turned into a scowl. Although he is really perverted and we all hate that about him. He's still kind. So you could say it somehow counters it. Zenovia said, but the stares from Irina and Kaneko and even the slight glare of Asia made her retract her words. Okay. Don't look at me with those eyes. She raised both arms up. I mean sure, he really is dumb and foolish to the extreme, even for me to say. Let's not mention perverted and even lustful. But his kindness was always a good trait. Even though he has many more bad ones than good ones. Zenovia said, but Kaneko replied with a tone filled with sarcasm and scorn. One good, everything else bad. That caused Asia and Irina to giggle and Zenovia to say. That hurt Issei's heart deeply, truly it did. Well, that's true. She said without any remorse in her face. Well, now that we have someone that's not bad to us, you could say that all those bad memories will be gone. The blue-haired said to them. Causing the rest of the girls to nod and loudly say. True, much better than before. As they walked away, they didn't realize they destroyed the last of Issei's resistance. So it was true, everyone told lies to me. His thoughts were reaching a terrible state. The way they acted towards me. He screamed inside his head, making a purple light to start surrounding his body. Those smiles given to me. The light increased in density and made his eyes change from brown to green. All that so-called love, all of it was a lie. He screamed with all of his force, making the light cover his body, as if protecting him. They always hated me. All those moments were nothing but lies, 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 lies. He screamed, expelling the light from his body, covering his surroundings with only purple and green particles. The feelings he now experienced were nothing but sadness, frustration, pain, agony, rage, grief, shame, and so many more. Repeating his monologue over and over again, inside his mind. The scene of Rias and Akeno with that The words from Zenovia, Irina, Asia, and Kaneko. The truth about why were they never, not even for a moment with him in the past 2 months, slowly unraveled itself before his eyes. They were with someone else. Every single one of them. They lied and used him just during the moments when they would surely die. Just when they needed something. Just when they needed a shield. Just for their own personal gain. How dare they toy with my heart like this? They want other males. Fine. Go ahead with your boyfriends. Let's see if they're actually strong or not. That would be a sight to see. Issei sees the image of Miya, Kagari, Matsu, and Yuzume in front of him, and it warms his heart because he and Drake knew they never lied to him. They were always honest with him. There was also the same woman who came to the inn drunk a lot but was a beautiful and honest woman in his eyes. The light around him shrunk in size, and Issei felt inside of him change. In a good way, and boy did he like it. He knew Ravel and Roswa still cared for him, so he still has a place in his heart for them, but right now he needs Mia's warmth. He stretched his hand in front of him, and a portal revealed itself. Issei sent his family to send his stuff to the Izumo Inn earlier before he went to the school, and saw the realization from the 6 girls he first loved and died for. He walked in and made his way through. I hope you wake up Mia. Izumo Inn. 7 p.m. Mia and the others prepped the room for Issei and had a little party for him. Even Kazuhana showed up. Right now only Kagari, Mia, and Kazuhana were in the room. Matsu and Yuzume retired for the night. The residents who were awake were very shocked when a portal appeared before them, and out came Issei, and he was not in a happy mood. Mia saw this and grabbed Issei's shoulders. Issei, what's wrong? She was worried for him, as was Kagari and Kazuhana, since she had gotten to know the man when he came over and talked with her about love. Issei was stiff until he asked. Mia. Please don't let me go or hate me. Please don't leave me. I don't want to be alone and feel cold. He looked at her with a saddened look on his face. Please. Mia was surprised because she hardly saw him cry. She would be a bit selfish but still show love and care for him. She helped him up and carried him to her room. Mia looked at the others and gave them a silent sign to leave them alone for now. Kagari shook no and went to help him, as did Kazuhana. Issei felt them helping him and thanked them. They smiled at the broken man in their arms and put him in Mia's bed. They changed into nightwear and Mia took his right side, Kazuhana the left and Kagari on top, with her assets warming his chest. Braig saw the girls infatuated with him and would have to question his partner's feelings about them. Little did the dragons know, the Sekirei in the city were responding to him. In MBI Tower, a certain black Sekirei woke up when she felt a burst of power enter the city. Her body shook in excitement as she looked out the window. "It seems you've come, my Ashikabi." She draws her sword. "Let's see if you are truly worthy of my power." In the park, a woman wearing only a lab coat felt a massive burst of emotions enter her body and her mark on her forehead flashes purple, red, and green. She felt pain until the pain left her and she felt complete. She now had a mission. To find her Ashikabi. "Wait for me, my Ashikabi." On a radio tower, a certain blonde-haired woman felt her chest warm up when the memories of a certain Ashikabi penetrated her mind. She felt all of the emotions he also felt. Anger, sadness, betrayal, and so much more. She looked into the city and asked herself, "Who are you, my Ashikabi, and why do I have the desire to comfort you instead of my original goals?" The dragon has entered Shinto Teito, where his destiny shall written for all of eternity. Issei woke up and all he saw was darkness. He got up and looked around, hoping to see his partner Draig, but couldn't see the red dragon anywhere. The light was shown in front of him, and when it diminished, a door was left in its place. Issei was surprised but didn't have any other choice than to open the door. On the other side, he saw a wasteland. There was nothing there but dirt, dust, and nothing else. Suddenly the ground shook as soldiers and tanks appeared and took aim at something. Issei turned to see Mia. Mia was standing with 4 other individuals. Matsu and Kazuhana were with her in some kind of uniform. The last 2 were interesting in their own way. The last woman may look beautiful, but there was something that made her different from the others. The man in the group looked like he was some kind of samurai, but without all of the armor. Mia raised her sword and charged at the soldiers, along with the others. Mia raised her sword and killed many of them. Matsu was using weapons in hand-to-hand combat to take out her opponents. Kazuhana was, amazingly, using wind to help her fly and blast them away. The woman had a dark grin and raised her sword as she enjoyed killing and seeing blood scatter all around her. None of the soldiers stood a chance as they were dropping like flies. The man in the group had a passive look on his face, and he muttered something before using his sword to create a wall of earth that swallowed the soldiers and their tanks. Mia and the others stood tall and were not troubled in the slightest. Issei was shocked to see 3 of the women he knew would do this damage. This is just like the old Mag faction. All of the destruction and death would have made him puke if he didn't already have a strong stomach from the war he's been in for a short but long while. This is who she used to be a long time ago. Issei turned to see a man with grey messy hair that hides a part of his face and wore a turtleneck sweater and sweatpants covered by a white lab coat. The man was sitting down on the porch of the Izumo Inn with a cold beer in his hand. The man looked at Issei and invited him over to sit next to him. Issei did so and got a soda instead from the man. "Who are you?" The man chuckled as he laid down his drink. "I'm surprised you don't recognize me since you did see my picture a few times. The ones in the dining room." Issei remembered seeing those pictures. The dots connected. Issei looked at the man and was shocked. "You're Teito." Mia's late husband Teito grinned and clasped a hand on the dragon's shoulder. "You got it. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. I can tell she really cares for you." Issei blushed and was surprised when he heard this. "I'm not going to lie. I do have feelings for Mia, but I don't know if she truly loves me." Issei still felt the pain from the betrayal of the other girls until a flick to the forehead brought him out of his depression. Teito had an angry look on his face and sighed. "Listen, Issei, Sekirei are incredible beings. Working for MBI was one of the greatest and worst moments of my life. I was able to accomplish and help bring to life something incredible only for my accomplishments to be used as a tool for war by an insane man who thinks he was blessed by God. What's the history with these Sekirei? I've never heard of them before in my life." Teito laughed a bit. "Well, let's go back to the beginning. 20 years ago a ship crashed in the Sea of Japan. The crash was a strange one in that it formed an island where there was only water at the time. A pair of young scientists found this island a few weeks after, along with the ship itself. On board, they found 108 aliens, 1 child, 4 infants, and 103 embryos. They were the people we brought back to the mainland, the Sekirei." Issei didn't say anything, but motioned first him to continue. "The scientists knew what would happen if any government found out about us, so they kept it a secret, only telling those that they would bring on later about their discovery. With the alien technology they eventually made a pharmaceutical company, but this was only a side project. The real goal was the Sekirei. Since then, they have artificially matured, adjusted, and trained us in order for us to fight one another in a battle royale, until only one is left. This battle royale is called the Sekirei plan. Issei was shocked but had to know. I presume it's MBI. It only makes sense since they were able to make leaps and bounds in the technology and science departments from what they found in the ship. Teito nodded. You're absolutely correct. When I first met Mia, all I wanted to do was to care for her and show her that there's a much bigger world out there filled with possibilities and so much more than killing and following orders. Sadly, my plan to stop the Sekirei plan resulted in me destroying her heart and making her miserable with a false smile on her face. Issei put a hand on his shoulder to comfort him. Teito thanked him and continued. Every day I saw her do her daily tasks and go to my grave. I want her to be happy. I want her to fall in love with the man who makes her react and happy. I thought it wouldn't have been possible until you came into the picture. I still remember when the two of you first met. She was a bit curious about the paper she received that said her wish would come true and thought it was complete nonsense. Imagine her surprise when she summoned a teenager with the powers of a dragon that was also reincarnated as a devil. Issei laughed a bit. Yeah, I remember her thinking if it was all a joke, but after I told her about me, she just had a small smile and just asked me to do a few things around the inn. Eventually, she would call me time and time again to come back to the inn. I got to know the real her and saw how she interacts with everyone at the inn. Teito was just observing Issei as he spoke. Over time, when I wanted to come here to Tokyo University, I asked Mia and the others for help. I remember having to sleep with only little sleep to retain the info, but one thing kept me strong until the end. It was seeing Mia happy with her true smile and her warmth radiating off of her. It was then I realized that I fell for her and wanted to know more and more about her. Issei looks at Teito. I ask for your blessing to pursue a relationship with her. I will not bring any harm to her and I will protect her with my life. Teito saw the look in his eyes and knew he could trust her. You have my blessing. I just wanted to see the kind of man Mia wanted to be with after so long. I thank you Issei Haidu. Oh, and a few more things. Your friend, the dragon, wishes to talk with you. Something about your peerage set and powers. Look after Mia and the girls, including Himura. Before you ask, talk with her about her condition. She's a good girl who just needs a little TLC. I'm sorry for what happened to you, but remember this, Sekirei are beings that are meant to be loved. They care for their Ashikabi that they are destined to be with for all of time. They wish to protect them and be with them forever. They accept them for who they are spiritually and emotionally, not just physically. Learn to love again. They love you, trust me. He begins to fade away. Save the Sekirei and stop the plan. I know you can, because there's nothing you can't do. He vanishes into a shower of golden sparkles and disappears for good. His soul is at peace now that he knows Mia will be truly happy. Goodbye Mia. Live your life and love the man who has stolen your heart. Heal him and love him with all of your being. Mia felt a warmth enter her chest as she continued to sleep with Issei, but never woke up from her slumber. Issei's dreamscape changed to a familiar sight with a certain dragon. Drake was happy to see that his partner and friend were alright, but he had to explain a few things to him before they discuss future plans. Partner, I know you are happy to see me but please wait, I need to tell you something. Drake said in a serious tone, forcing Issei to pay attention. First, I need to tell you why us dragons are special. This took Issei's interest. Dragons are born with really tough bodies that are naturally resistant to pretty much everything. Their reserves of energy and stamina are huge. Even a low-class dragon could probably defeat a high-class devil if he put in the effort. All of this is thanks to our bodies, yet the most important part of a dragon is their aura. Drake explained while pride filled his voice. This surprised Issei, he never heard that dragons had that. But why was Drake telling him that? I know what you are thinking. Let me finish my explanation and I'll tell you why. As if he was reading his partner's mind, Drake told him. This took Issei by surprise. First you need to know that dragons are born with a nucleus. Think about it as an organ and a generator at the same time. The nucleus is where the aura of a dragon is located and each and every dragon has one nucleus. But sometimes the nucleus of a dragon can change and evolve, breaking its limits and granting the dragon a really powerful ability that either has many traits or a single one. Once a dragon reaches that point, he or she will evolve and his growth rate will increase at a monstrous pace, even among our kind. Drake paused before he continued his explanation. This time Issei willingly paid attention, completely focused on his words. For a dragon's aura to change, it needs to either experience a dramatic change in his or her psyche, in other words, make the dragon change from the inside, or an extremely long period of time needs to pass. The first cases are Yulong and Tiamat, and the second cases are me, Albion, Tannen, and the rest of the famous dragons that I know of. Once this change occurs to the dragon, its strength in all aspects will increase, and depending on its trait its growth speed will be different from others. Stupefied by the sudden information Drake told him, Issei didn't have any words to say for a long while. Wow. So that's why dragons are that strong. No wonder they were called the strongest species. Issei had a little bit of pride filling him, he even made a small smirk on his face. But why are you telling me this? Issei asked a red dragon as he looked at his hands pondering about the new power within him. He expected an answer from the dragon. Because, partner. That evolution occurred to you just a day ago. Drake answered his question. Issei could swear he could see a mocking smirk on the dragon's face, even if he couldn't look directly at him, he just felt it. But before he continued his thoughts, he widened his eyes. He felt petrified, and stuttering he talked back wait air. US saying he was interrupted by the laugh of a dragon. Ahahahaha. Drake laughed maniacally with all the effort he could muster. Correct. Congratulations, partner. Now you are a true dragon in the whole sense of the word. Now you can actually become the strongest Seikryuite in history. Drake congratulated his partner because of the new improvement, but more than improvement, it was a change and evolution. By the strength shown the other day when you released your aura, I can proudly say to you that it's not inferior to neither Albion's nor my own. Ha. Drake continued to maniacally laugh. The words of the dragon shocked Issei even further. Not inferior to his own, but Drake is a heavenly dragon. It's he saying that I have the potential to become a heavenly dragon because of my own power, without the boosted gear. Once again partner, that's correct. With the correct training and time, you by your own strength can attain the heights of a heavenly dragon. If not more. Drake answered, magically reading his partner's mind again. Was he that easy to read? Issei was dumbfounded. He never thought that he, the weakest Seikryuite in history, could reach by his own strength without any external help, the potential to become a heavenly dragon. Ahahaha. Now who's the miracle Vali? Laughing and scoffing at his rival inside his head, Issei quickly felt in the best mood since the past couple of months. Drake saw his partner's state and was happy to cheer him up. Now it's time to explain the second thing he wanted to tell Issei. It wasn't just your new powers you received thanks to awakening your aura. Your peerage set also went through a massive change in powers and abilities. With a wave of his claw, Issei's pieces appeared in front of him. The pieces were red, green, and purple. All of the pieces had a pair of dragon wings on them, and he could feel the aura radiating off of them. Issei looks at Drake with a shocked look. Are these really my pieces? They feel like they combined with my aura and mutated into this. Drake nodded. When you unlocked your aura, your pieces reacted to your boost in power and mixed with them. Now they are much stronger than a normal peerage set. It's as if you have an entire peerage of mutated pieces, all in which grants a person the ability to become a dragon. The pawn still has the ability of promotion, and by looking at its power level, it could make a low-tier low-class devil rise up in terms of power to an high-tier high-class devil. The rook has increased in terms of its ability to grant the person impenetrable defense and incredible offensive strength. The durability was upgraded to that of being unharmed from high-tiered spells, and the offensive power is deadly to even a high-tiered devil. It also makes up for the speed loss by granting the user an impressive speed boost, similar to Surzich's knight. The knight still grants the greater speed and mobility, but they also gain armor around them that's lightweight and durable against high-tiered mid-class spells. The bishops still receive an incredible boost in their magic and reserves, but the amount of magic they have to use is greatly lessened. Still might want to train them hand to hand so they can defend themselves. And finally, the queen. This will make them a powerhouse, and what's new is that the queen grows stronger as the king grows. After all, a queen is the second in command, so they must be ready to deal with any enemies that you face in the future. Despite these new powers, they will have to train in order for their body to be accustomed to the extra power. Issei was surprised by the new abilities of his pieces and decided to gather a strong peerage. Not one with just beautiful women, but those who will stand and fight by his side. Drake had to ask his partner something. Partner, Issei was taken out of his thoughts by the question from his partner and said I don't know. He truly didn't know what he wanted to do. Seeking revenge was pleasurable but rather empty. After that, then what? Being hunted by half of the supernatural world? Nah, it isn't worth it. If he really did get revenge then, what was the difference between him and them? He wanted to prove he was different from anything and from anyone, but that dark path wasn't on his mind. If he wanted revenge then it would be by his own way, not slaughtering everything in his path like a mindless beast. He was curious though. Why did they do that? Why did they choose to leave him? But now, it wasn't in his list of priorities. If he was like before he would have looked for answers even if blood stained his hands, but different questions filled his head. What do I want to do? That was his first thought. Will I turn back? For what purpose? Being pushed back and scorned for what I once was. Issei started to think deeply to himself, something he hadn't done in a long while. I must agree, my attitude wasn't the best. But it still is not enough to treat me like that. His eyes were shining with anger. His aura started to come out and cover him. To speak behind my back like that. To treat me as a disposable shield like that. To insult and hurt me like that. Issei thought while clenching his fists. The aura feeds off his rage and grows in density that even surprised Drake. Anger filled him, but he did not let it control him, not anymore. He wanted to become stronger, to become someone feared and respected. So he came up with his decision. I will change, and I'll show you all how wrong you were. That was his answer. I will no longer be a joke. I will no longer be kicked around and be led by the nose. I will become someone you will not underestimate, and I will show you all the might of a dragon. That will be my revenge. Seeing his partner in deep thought, the dragon did not say anything else. He was worried over the decision his partner will make. He didn't want his partner to seek revenge that never solved anything. Rather, it left even more pain to those involved. Although he couldn't see his partner's thoughts, he could feel his emotions. Determination, pride, decisiveness, and for once in a long time happiness. He now knew what decision his partner made, and damn was he proud and happy. Now was the time to hear the answer from him. But secretly he already knew the answer. Vague suspense filled his voice. That made the dragon put all of his attention to his words. I want to do what I want. Like a true dragon. His words echoed with strength all over the mindscape. I do not want to be a slave, following a spoiled little girl that thinks she is the best. I no longer want to be led by the nose by someone else. I want to become a true leader with his own team. I want to journey around the world and see how beautiful it is. Issei screamed with all the power he had in his body. But first and foremost he inhaled deeply. I do not want to be treated as an ignorant, naive, foolish, perverted boy. I want to be treated with respect, with seriousness, and like how I truly deserve it. His scream turned into a roar, a true dragon's roar that echoed within his mind, shaking everything around him. He looked like a beast freed from its bindings. Drake was stupefied, the answer he guessed was completely off the mark. But the answer given to him by his partner filled him with eagerness, pride and many more emotions. He was happy that his friend and host wanted to do that. Now he was finally maturing and acting like a true dragon should. Not saying anything, the dragon let his friend unburden himself. After the echo of the roar disappeared, he finally spoke. Partner, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. I could not agree with you more. Finally you left behind that self-destructive attitude you had. Finally, are you willing to change for the good? Finally you are acting like a dragon should. Drake roared at Issei. But instead of intimidating, it was supportive and filled with eagerness to get already started. Move ahead, Issei. There are still things we need to do before accomplishing the goals we have imposed on ourselves. Regaining his composure, Drake told Issei. Issei nodded and woke up. The first thing he saw were two beautiful women in bed with him. Yuzum and Mia were up and happy that Issei was okay. They saw a purple aura envelop him, but it disappeared after he woke up. He got up and hugged the two of them. Mia and Yuzum were shocked but then relaxed in his arms. Hamura, Matsu, and Kazuhana stood in the hallway and were happy that the young man was alright. Unknown to all of them, they had an observer that watched from the darkness. A dark-skinned woman with jet black hair. She was wearing a bikini top beneath a small hooded shawl, a buckled sarong, and leather knee-high boots to complete her black attire. She reached out to him but stopped herself. My Ashikabi. No, Issei Haidu. I hope I can reveal myself to you and stay by your side. But for now, I will play my part as your shadow and see what they are up to. The woman made a vow to protect her Ashikabi, even if it meant to stain her hands in blood. By the shadows of my contract, may the darkness swallow all of my Ashikabi's despair. She walked away to scout some potential recruits and observe the women who dared to harm her love. Amura looked and thought he sensed someone watching them until he brushed it aside. Mia and Yuzum walked out of the room with Issei. Hamura was about to reach out but stopped himself. A hand grabbed him and he looked up to see Issei smiling at him, and just like that the reaction was bursting with power. Hamura grabbed his right arm and hugged it like a lifeline. What are you doing to me, Issei? At the breakfast table, there was a warm atmosphere as they chatted about what happened yesterday until Issei looked at Mia. Mia? I know about your past. Mia was shocked and cried a little, thinking Issei would think of her as a monster, until Issei went over to her and lifted her head to look at him. Mia. Who you were in the past doesn't matter right now. What matters is who you are today, and who I see in front of me isn't a murderer or a monster. I only see a woman who was stripped of the chance to love. He gets on one knee. The girls gasp as Matsu's glasses fog up, Yuzum and Hamura look at them in amazement, and Kazuhana was surprised but watched. Mia's hands covered her mouth when she saw this. Is he going to? Mia, I want to be with you through better or worse. In sickness and in health. Will you be the queen of my world? Mia was surprised until tears came out of her eyes. She cried. Yes. What took you so long to ask me? Issei summoned his queen piece, and instead of a normal chess piece, it was in the form of a ring that was purple with gold engravings on it. He placed the ring on her finger, and the ring entered her soul. Mia felt a great warmth enter her body and felt herself transforming. Her mind was filled with memories of Issei's life and vowed to herself that she would be his queen in both body and spirit, forever. Issei stood up and cupped her right cheek. Mia and Issei leaned in and ed. Wings of dark purple erupted from her back and a pair of dragon wings appeared. Issei's own dragon wings came out and they moved in to cover them, as if the wings were giving them privacy. Matsu and Kazuhana were crying after seeing a beautiful display of true love in front of them. Homura and Yuzume were a little sad that they weren't his first Sekirei, but still held on to hope that they could be with him. The wings unfurled to reveal Issei and Mia resting their foreheads next to each other. Mia. My lovely queen, stay with me until the end of time. I promise to protect you and to save the other Sekirei from the sick plan. Issei. Thank you for giving this soul a second chance at love, and I promise to protect your heart from harm. They opened their eyes to see the audience's surprise. Kazuhana and Matsu were giving them a thumbs up, while Yuzume and Homura were looking a little uneasy. Issei needed to know. Mia, are Yuzume and Kagari? The finger covered is. Mia looks at them and then goes back to Issei. Yuzume is reacting to you, and Kagari's real name is Homura, but he has a special condition. Homura took over. My condition is that I can turn into what my Ashikabi desires. At first, I was trying to get a female, but that didn't work. I thought I wouldn't have one until I got to know you and started to hang out with you. My hormones were driving me crazy between turning into a male and female, but then my mental state changed to where I wanted to be with you, and my body became a female for much longer. She undid the bandages that held her chest. Issei couldn't help but stare at them and saw how firm they were. Mia pulled his cheek, which woke him up from staring at them. Yuzume and the others laughed at this until a ladle came down on their heads. Homura took the chance to close the gap and hug Issei. Issei froze for a second, but then hugged him or her back. Homura looked at him. Please Issei. I want to be with you. I know you may find me ugly, but Issei's met hers, and wings of fire erupted out of her back. Matsu and Kazuhana had a nosebleed from seeing this, and in another part of Shinto Teito, a girl was in her bedroom reading a book until her perverted instincts kicked in and had a nosebleed. Something amazing happened. When the two separated, Kagari was officially 100% female, and she was happy. Yuzume looked at Issei, and all he did was open his arms for her to jump into them and end her. He then hugged them. I can finally say this. Yuzume, Kagari, Mia. I love you from the bottom of my heart. They were happy and gave him a group hug with Matsu and Kazuhana watching. Mia deserves to be loved. She's endured so much and now, she can be happy. Issei's heart felt warm with the new feelings from his Sekirei. He told them about his peerage and they accepted the proposal. Now Yuzume is officially his rook and Kagari his bishop. Mia was the queen and that kinda terrified them all. At MBI, two Sekirei felt the burst of power. Karasuba was sharpening her blade when her heart was beating like crazy and her bloodthirst was rising, wanting to challenge him. Karasuba panted as she looked out the window and punched it. I really want to fight you or else I'm going to go crazy. Yum was feeling the burst of love and felt a sense of pride in her chest when she felt a Sekirei save her Ashikabi's heart from pain. Her heart and core were reacting hard to the power. May our hearts and paths cross, my Ashikabi. I'll keep you safe, especially from Karasuba. Tsukiyumi was in her apartment taking a bath when she felt a warmth mix with the water and felt like she was being taken to a safe and comfortable place in the water. It's so relaxing and soothing to my heart. Bakitsu felt the presence again and was following the power. Wait for me, my Ashikabi. I'm coming to find you. Kuo Academy or Club Room. Back in Kuo City, a certain Sekirei appeared from the shadows and quietly observed the room that her Ashikabi went to when he was a part of the team. She brought out her dagger and slightly opened the door just enough for her to listen in. Now on the Orc, the entire Grimoire peerage was there with the exception of Issei, Gasper and Roswis. Irina was there as well, but the most surprising guests were 5 male figures that stood at his side, all being the current love interests of the girls. The first one was tall, he had blonde hair that reached to his shoulders and a rather fit image. He appeared to be in his early 20s and was wearing a blue polo shirt with blue jeans and black sneakers. His name was Ryuji Minamoto, president of XXXX faculty in Kuo College Division. The second and third ones looked similar, but they also seemed opposite to one another. Both had black hair, but the former had it tied into a ponytail that fell down his back and it only reached his upper back. The other one also had the same black hair, but it was really messy, with many bangs covering his face. Both of them wore the Kuo Academy uniform and looked quite similar. They looked young, around 18, and had a delicate face that gave them the appearance of young boys. The former had blue eyes while the later black. Other than that, they looked practically the same to one another. They were Ryutaro and Saoji Takahashi. Brothers by blood, and both of them were the elder brothers of a young one. The young one was Hijama, also sharing the same last name as the both of them. He was also present in the room, right at the side of his brothers behind the largest couch in the room. The fifth one had blonde hair that was also mixed with brown, making him have real foreigner-like hair and overall appearance. He had blue eyes that were gentle but held a hint of smugness. He, as the three brothers, wore the Kuo Academy uniform with a pair of black dress shoes. His name was Ken Mishima. The five of them stood behind the couch because of the orders of Rias. Soon she spoke up. "Well, I'm grateful that everyone made it. I have important news for you all." She talked with a calm voice. "According to my brother, a world-class rating game will be held in the next couple of months. Around 3 or 4, the date hasn't been specified yet." Rias talked while looking at her peerage, Ravel and Arena. "It means that any being of the supernatural world can participate in it. Humans, devils, angels, fallen and gods. Anyone can participate as long as they signed themselves in before the last day." Rias dropped the bomb, making Peerage and Arena open their mouths and eyes. But the five men didn't understand, they were kind of new to this. "Rias-sama, are you saying that gods can participate in this as well as other races?" Kiba asked her, dumbfounded by the new information. She just nodded her head. "Yes, that's correct, Udo. Everyone, everything, can participate." Clarifying, Rias looked at her knight. But seeing the expressions of the five men that couldn't understand, she decided to explain to them. The rating game is usually a game of devils in which they fight with their peerages for fame and glory. The rating games were made to satisfy the ego of the devils and to prove which peerage is stronger. She began her explanation. In the beginning, they fought against each other saying, "My pawn is stronger," or "My rook is stronger." And because of those skirmishes the rating games were created. Rias talked about the rating games, making the five men nod their heads. Then Akeno continued. "For the first time since the beginning of the rating games, a world-class rating game will be held. One in which anyone can participate. We are telling you this because since you all now belong to the supernatural, you would be scouted by someone to be part of their teams." Akeno finished the explanation while adding a bit more information. The five were surprised, never would have thought something like this would happen. "Yes. Since all five of you possess sacred gears, others will start moving. After all, battle-oriented sacred gears are rare." Rias explained to them again. Ryuji asked while crossing his arms. "Battle-oriented?" Akeno answered instead of Rias. "Yes. Sacred gears have classifications, whether battle-oriented or not battle-oriented. You five have battle-oriented ones and because of that, someone will try to get you." Her words shocked them. "Ryuji, although you already knew that the supernatural world existed thanks to your parents, you still do not know enough about it. Yufufufu." Akeno looked at his lover and giggled. Ryuji was a pure-born human, but both of his parents were high-class mages, around mid-class devils, in terms of power, so they explained, since he was little, that the supernatural existed. However, since they didn't know much about it and only very simple information was given to him, he was not as informed as Rias' peerage. That gap in knowledge was slowly being filled in by Rias and Akeno. The rest of the men were also purely born humans, but with a sacred gear. Ken liked spearmanship since small, so he knew a martial art to help him during a fight. Saoji, like Zenobia and Kiba, practiced with swords, but he wasn't very talented at it, above average was Kiba's guess. Ryuji practiced karate from a young age, thanks to his parents since they owned a dojo, and was quite good at it. The rest didn't know a single martial art, so now they were being trained by the girls from scratch. "Rias-sama. What about Gasper and Issei-kun?" Kiba asked her, managing to get the surprised looks of certain girls. It seemed they forgot about Issei and Gasper. But Rias answered with a calm voice. "Don't worry. Gasper was the first one I told this information to, but since he doesn't want her to be alone, he's still at the hospital. And Issei, I spoke to him a few days ago, he is already training." She explained to them with a tone filled with pride at the mention of her pawn. Issei, the three brothers screamed, they knew about the infamous reputation of the brown-haired boy. "Hi do Issei, he's with you guys," Saoji screamed at his question. "Yes, Ice-kun is the sole pawn of the Grimoire peerage," Kiba answered back. That pervert Ryutaro spoke, this time his voice filled with disbelief and a bit of anger. Bijama only stood there, frozen in shock. What can that pervert do? He can't do anything right, he's worthless and doesn't have any redeeming qualities. A really stupid guy that has been threatened with expulsion far too many times to count. Saoji spoke again, making Kiba crack his knuckles in anger. Ice is the possessor of the boosted gear and has fought many different beings that appeared only in legends. He has even killed a few. Kiba spoke proudly about his friend, not wanting for him to be talked about like that. Then the twin brothers and Ryuji spoke at the same time. Is he really the same guy? This time Hijama spoke up, surprised by the words of the blonde-haired. That isn't possible. How could a pervert be someone that awesome? It's impossible, I refuse to believe it. Saoji replied as quickly as he could, refusing to believe those words. Ken just stood there not saying a word. He knew about the reputation of his classmate, but he also knew to not judge a book by its cover. Yes, Saoji. Issei has really done that. I say he is the strongest in the peerage. Zenobia answered him, trying to make him believe their words. Seeing his girlfriend like that, he knew she was serious and she wouldn't joke about something like that. But then Ryuji asked again, evading that conversation. Boosted gear? What is that? A sacred gear? Tiba answered his question instead. Yes. One of the 13 Longinus and the strongest user of it. His words caused them to be even more confused. Longinus? Ken for the first time asked in a loud voice for them to hear. Oh, Ken-san, sorry. I forgot to tell you about that. Asia was feeling slightly regretful by not telling him this. The Longinus are the 13 strongest battle-oriented sacred gears that exist. Once dominated to a certain extent, they can even kill gods from the different mythologies around the world. Irina answered his question, but it made all of them widen their eyes in shock. Something like that exists. Ryutaro looked at her, surprised by the new information. Yes. Irina replied while looking at him. So he can kill a god like the gods in myths. Ryuji was dazed, he tried to hide the small hint of fear in his voice. To be exact, he already killed a being with similar power to that of a god. Zenobia told them absent-mindedly, making all the men get goosebumps. You really can't judge a book by his cover. Who did the KKK kill? Hijama stuttered, however, Kaneko still answered him. A dragon. Silence ruled the entire orc. The men couldn't quite process that kind of information, it seemed, and was, illogical to them. They knew about Issei, the rather infamous reputation he had, seeing him as someone with the power to slay a dragon of all things was irrational. They looked around the club, trying to find any hint of being a joke or a prank. But the hard look on all present quickly crushed their hope to bits. The five inhaled a cold breath of air at the realization, this wasn't a joke. It was the harsh truth and there was nothing they could do to refuse it. He really slew a D-dragon? Saoji asked, sweat falling down his cheek and trying to hide the tremors in his voice. To be more precise, an evil dragon. Irina spoke once again, trying to sound cheerful, maybe to calm them down. There are different types of dragons. Ken asked back, his voice seemed to be emotionless, but all could see his amazement. Yes. They are divided like any other race, but after a certain unknown threshold is reached, they evolve. Akeno decided to answer this question but was confused as well. She didn't understand much about dragons, a race full of mysteries. There are normal dragons from low, mid, and high class. Dragons that reach ultimate class are basically unheard of across the supernatural globe and in history, so there's no ultimate class dragon. Riaz decided to intervene and continued the explanation. Afterwards, there's a huge strength leap in their race, and no one knows what causes it. It's a mystery. However, after that, a huge increase in power happens to the dragon, and they are able to reach the level above a supposed ultimate class. The men swallow their spit, obviously uncomfortable with that kind of information. That level she quoted is known as Dragon King, and rather than class or tier, is a title signifying their status in their race. Across history there have been only 6 Dragon Kings, but the majority of them already are no longer active, so very few remain. She said and took a breath of air. Above them are the 2 heavenly dragons, the red one and the white one. Dragon Albion. Both destroyed and sealed into sacred gears, but were known for their power to crush gods. Ice possesses the boosted gear in which the red dragon was sealed. She said with a teasing voice, but before continuing she was interrupted by Akeno. Above them are the dragon gods, being the strongest among the strong. The zenith of power across the world. The dragon of infinity and nothingness and the dragon of dreams and illusions. Akeno finished her explanation, giving Riaz a teasing wink of her eye. The males in question just swallowed their spit. Their bodies trembling, they now understood the meaning of a mountain above a mountain and a person above a person, or in this case dragon. The world was filled with all of this, and I didn't even know about it, they all thought at the same time. What about evil dragons? Hijama asked with a soft tone of voice, realizing that they weren't mentioned. The evil dragons are like their names say. Dragons that became corrupted, whether by outside forces or by their own wills. Turning them into beings of evil. Ravel spoke for the first time since they came inside the room. Since the beginning, she was completely silent, but this time she wanted to speak. Therefore, she answered the question in the best way possible. Tiba continued her explanation, this time with detail. The 5 males thanked him mentally. Among them, there were a few which were the strongest of the evil dragons. He looked at them and continued his explanation. From the strongest to the weakest they were, the Crescent Circle Dragon Crom Cruach, Diabolism Thousand Dragon Ozzy Dahaka, the Primal East Dragon Apophis, the Insomniac Dragon Laden, and last but certainly not the least, Crime Force Dragon Grendel. The first three had the strength of a heavenly dragon, but among them only Crom Cruach is alive. Finishing the explanation, Kiba catches his breath. What happened to the other T2? Saoji asked, confusion written across his face and fear in his tone. Ozzy Dahaka was killed by the Hakuryuko during a fight. Apophis was killed by Issei, the Sekiryuite. Rias explained to them about what happened to the evil dragons. Hakuryuku, Sekiryuite? Ken questioned, not understanding why the names. The ones who hold the sacred gears in which the White Dragon and Red Dragon have their souls sealed, received those titles. As the current owners Vali and Issei hold the titles. Rias answered Ken's question. But another came after that. Vali. Who's that? Ryudaro asked while keeping his eyes on Rias. But Akeno at her side answered instead. Current Hakuryuku, the possessor of the divine dividing and the host of the White Dragon. Maybe if you're lucky, one day you will meet him, Akeno explained, not telling Vali's full name on purpose, she didn't want more questions. Finishing their explanation, the five of them took some time to assimilate the information. Then, they said at the same time while bowing their heads, just like it was rehearsed. Please train us. They wanted to be strong. If the world counted with such terrifying beings and one of them was a seemingly normal boy, then they needed to be strong enough to protect themselves. Surprised at their response, Rias asked. Why? Because we want to protect the people we love alongside ourselves. Ryuji represented the group and said those words. The answer made all the women freeze. They remembered the same words as a brown-haired boy, making them feel conflicted. They still loved him, but they also loved their current boyfriends as well. That's why they treated him like that. They felt conflicted, and every time they saw him they felt even more, that's why they evaded him and ignored him. They had to put their feelings at ease and think clearly, something that they hadn't been capable of. Not yet. They wanted to be with him, but they also didn't want to end their relations with their boyfriends just like that. The clash of feelings made them feel guilty, that's why they evaded, scorned and ignored him. All the girls felt the same, but they knew something needed to be done. Far too long has passed, and they didn't know what Issei was doing. Since they were going to live for 10,000 years. They wanted to gain experience in a relationship. Rias and Akeno wanted to try approaching other types of boys to gain experience. Since they would spend their eternity with Issei, they had time and compensated for all damage done if it was done at another time. But they didn't expect that their interest would turn into something more. After spending time talking with him and knowing more about him, they slowly forgot about Issei. After some time passed, he asked if they believed in the supernatural. Seeing where the question was going, they said yes, and after a long talk, they told him they were devils. Since he knew about the supernatural, he wasn't surprised, and instead he continued treating them like normal girls that weren't related to the supernatural at all, something they really felt thankful for. They wanted to be treated like normal girls not related to the supernatural, and since Ryuji was the closest man that wasn't as related to the supernatural as the rest of the men they knew, he was the best choice. They spent their time talking about idle topics, going out as friends, among others. The fact that he didn't stare at them in any perverted way really made them feel at ease. Being always stared and looked like that is really tiring. They liked the expression and reaction they provoked on Issei, but after some time, it gets exhausting. Time went by and they started to forget about Issei, replacing him with him, who was their role model of an ideal man when they were kids. Tall, good-looking, and confident, the dreams of any young girl. The reason they tried to get closer to their said senpai was that they didn't understand the male mind. After all, they didn't have many male acquaintances their age. So they started to get more involved with the males in their college, and soon they met him with the excuse that maybe in the future, they will be able to understand Issei better. Since understanding him would be a key piece for them to get even closer to Issei. The other girls seeing this asked them, why? When they heard their answers they were surprised, in their minds this was a good idea. If they are capable of understanding what other men thought of, then understanding Issei will be easier and their relationship will be closer. But they started to fall in love with the guys they chose to understand. They even dismissed Issei, forgetting everything he did for them. Even being cruel so that he didn't stop their plans. Once their relations are over they will get even closer to Issei and cross the line. Yet because of their selfishness and egoism, they truly didn't know how much Issei was suffering. Because of their lack of trust in getting closer to him and their inexperience in relations, they made certain choices that unknowingly affected Issei in a terrible way. Because they were lost in their heads, they started to compare Issei with them. Seeing his faults like a living being, and soon after they started to badmouth him behind his back. Scorning him, insulting him, ignoring him. Those words were spoken without thinking, yet they believed it was just the truth. After their inner thoughts appeared, they remained silent for some time, but then Riaz answered them. Sure, we'll train you, but it needs to be next week. We actually are quite busy and need to finish everything before concentrating on the game. They felt happy. There was a way for them to protect themselves, they had to take the chance. Thank you. They said again at the same time. Although recently they had been having some trouble with their relations, with this they could fix it. Ryuji was focusing on his work completely, not wasting a single minute with both Riaz and Akeno, and when he had free time he wastes it with his friends. Since they were really spoiled women and always ordered him to say where he was and with whom, sometimes he snapped and yelled at them to stop bothering him, creating friction between them. Saoji was completely focused on sports. He played tennis and practiced his swordsmanship and was rather close to Kiyomabe. That, alongside him only focusing on his tennis and sword practice, made him tight on time. So he set Zenobia aside temporarily and only focused on his sports. For her, it seemed that she was replaced by the new advisor of the tennis club, Kiyomabe. So sometimes arguments started. Ryutaro and Arena were good enough. She was really energetic, something he liked, but sometimes he just felt tired and just ignored her, causing her to be furious. But because of her energetic self, she was sometimes even jumpier than before and just exhausted him a lot. The woman just had too much energy sometimes. The Jama was always in the middle of the fights between Kaneko and the other girls of their classes, making him feel awkward. Sometimes he felt as if he was treated as a toy, but he hoped it was just his imagination. Since he trained with her he wasn't as bad as the others, but sometimes arguments started in their training and escalated into insults and fights, making him feel tired out and annoyed. Ken and Asia were the second better ones. But because Ken was a man of few words and Asia was timid, sometimes they wouldn't speak for hours. Making Asian teary-eyed, thinking she was boring and he didn't like when she was with him. Something he didn't like about her was that she always cried for something, she was kind, but she didn't have the courage for anything, at least in his eyes. Like a small animal always waiting to be protected. So this opportunity for training alongside them would help them with their relations. Well, they hoped. From the next week onwards they would try their best, both at becoming stronger and also at improving their relations. The woman spying on them from behind the door was clearly happy about the information she gained from the talk. About both the world-class rating game and as well as their future plans. My master will greatly enjoy this bit of news. She disappeared into the shadows and made her way to her destined one. The pieces have been moved and the first phase has just begun. Issei was in an abandoned warehouse district working with Kagari and Yuzume to help them with their new abilities. Kagari was getting the hang of his new fire abilities, such as learning how to use dragon fire, which was much stronger than her original fire. There were 3 different fires she can use thanks to the bishop piece. The first is her original flame that's become much hotter and stronger than originally. She can use the fire to enhance her kicks and punches, even breathe fire to burn her enemies. The second fire is a light green fire that she calls the flames of healing. The fire is able to heal wounds and cure internal illness. It doesn't burn, but it does take a bit of energy to use, so it all depends on how much magic they pour into the flames. The fire heals faster than Twilight healing and is much more effective since Asia had to constantly pour magic into her rings in order to speed the process. The last one is her strongest and most difficult. It's similar to Issei's dark fire that he calls Hellblaze, but she preferred to call it Hellfire. Issei and her were working together to help each other perfect the technique and they were able to create a stream of fire, even use it to enhance punches and kicks, but had to hold back from using it on others since it takes a while for the flames to be put out. Luckily, her flames of healing can counter the hellfire. In the end, they could create fireballs and spheres of the fire and darkness, but had to either turn their hand or tilt their head to change its direction. Neither are on Surzich's level, but with a little more hard work and practice, they should be able to somewhat reach his level. As for Yuzume, her abilities relied on clothing. At first her way of battling can only be seen as blocking or protecting others against close-range combat users, but thanks to the rook piece her abilities have become much stronger. Her clothing that she uses in battle is harder and much sturdier than it was, also her physical strength definitely puts her at mid-tiered ultimate class. However, her magical abilities are on par with a high-tier mid-class. Issei found it difficult to train her since her abilities relied on the clothing she wore, but once she explained that she can use it to create objects like drills and lances, he had an idea of how she can utilize this skill. He wasn't a master of weapons, but he could give a swordsman a run for their money. He and Mia trained her as best as they could when it came to using a sword and CQC. The 3 were able to pick up on using their new dragon-like abilities quickly since they were combat ready. Kagari and Yuzume definitely enjoyed the flying part, and Mia personally enjoyed using her dragon aura to scare others, much to Kazuhana and Matsu's dismay. The Izumo Inn also received a new tenant by the name of Minato Sahashi. He was a bit wimpy and got scared easily, but he was an alright guy. With him were a pair of girls named Shai and Sai, along with another girl named Kurus. He did enjoy the female body and was also able to wing Matsu, with permission from Miya. It was actually revealed that the three girls were actually Sekirei, with Kurus being his first, Shai second, Sai third, and Matsu as his fourth one. Issei and Minato got along well for the most part. Minato was a bit wimpy, so Issei tried to toughen him up, which worked for the most part. Minato did seem to put out an authoritative persona when disciplining his Sekirei. Personally, his Sekirei were proud of him for getting a spine, since they knew he had the strength, he just needed a little help. Issei knew that the inn was getting a bit cramped, so, with Miya's permission, he actually bought a bit more land to expand the inn, since he personally knew that if he and Minato attracted more Sekirei, then they're going to need a bigger home. Miya has been wanting to expand the inn, but with money issues she wasn't able to do so. With Miya and Issei, the two definitely enjoyed sparring, since it seemed they had some form of communication when clashing swords or fists. When it came to magic, Miya could only do basic teleportation and telekinesis, but her power boost from the Queen Piece gave her more strength and speed that terrified the others, except for Issei. Miya was able to help Issei learn more about swordsmanship and even taught Issei an ancient technique from a samurai. It was called the turning swallow strike. Issei picked it up quickly thanks to her teachings and wanting to become a better king. Today, Issei was coming back from his first week of classes and he enjoyed learning at the college since he was finally able to relax and be more studious in his academics. He learned the MBI was a powerful company, but also that very few knew about the Sekirei plan, which didn't surprise him since one of the rules that the Ashikabi have to follow is that they mustn't tell anyone until phase 2 of the plan. Issei learned that his control over his emotions was better than before thanks to unlocking his aura. His Sekirei seemed to have inherited those traits, since Kagari and Yuzume have a lot more courage when it comes to training and facing strong opponents like himself and Miya. Miya has also a better control of her emotions, and her rage is released on her opponents. While he was walking back, he noticed that a few auras were following him. He turned left at an intersection to see if they'd follow him. They did. He made another left and focused on his sensing until he felt them quicken their pace. As did he, but in a calm manner so he wouldn't alert them. He saw an empty field near the park, so he went there and sat on one of the benches. He sent a quick text to Miya that he would be back later after taking care of some business. He continued to sit down and enjoy the empty field and the cool breeze on his face. He heard a few footsteps behind him. "I found you." He turned to see a woman with a strange mark on her forehead and saw that she only seemed to wear a lab coat with chains hugging her chest. "Who are you?" The woman looked at him with a small smile and walked to him. Just as she was about to respond, a blast of water came between them. They turned to see a blonde-haired woman wearing an interesting outfit. A black dress with a wide underdress which shows her cleavage, wears a choker on her neck, and has long brown boots with black stockings. Issei thought he saw her panties flash for just a second because of the wind. She pointed to the other woman. "Stay away from him, he's my Ashikabi and I will eliminate him." She then turned to Issei. Subconsciously, Tsukiyumi began to draw fountains of water out of the air, just as Kazuhana landed next to the other Sekirei and Issei. "And who is this harlot thou hast brought forth with?" "Harlot?" both asked simultaneously. Akitsu tilted her head. "What's a harlot?" Kazuhana scowled at Tsukiyumi furiously. She liked to dress and act provocatively, sure, but she was by no means a harlot. She was still very much a virgin, after all. Her one and only love had only recently rejected her confession for the third time, and she felt no compulsion to have any affairs with anyone else but him. Issei sounded equally indignant. He was sure that as much as Kazuhana was wise and worldly and had one of the most heavenly bodies this side of the spring day sun. She was also sweet and nice, and she didn't seem to have a single judgmental bone in that body. He scowled at Tsukiyumi. "Why, Panty Flasher-chan, you know what people say about glass houses and throwing stones." Along with the rebuke, Kazuhana directed a wind swell right under Tsukiyumi's skirt, picking it up and allowing everyone to see the water mistress's white knickers. "What a waste of a good opportunity," Kazuhana said, eyeing the relatively conservative panties Tsukiyumi was currently wearing. This time it was Tsukiyumi's turn to scowl. "I have no idea what thou art refers to." A flustered Tsukiyumi pushed her skirt back down and turned her attention fully to Kazuhana. "I'm referring to the granny panties you're wearing right now. No Ashikabi in their right mind would want such a tease as you. First you wear a very short skirt, then you wear those booty huggers. They might as well be adult diapers." Tsukiyumi scowled furiously. "What do you know about teasing Ashikabi?" She fired a water dragon in Kazuhana's direction, but Kazuhana just idly cut the water attack apart with a barrage of wind blades. Seeing her ineffective attack, Tsukiyumi scowled and continued to rebuttal. "I'll have to know my future Ashikabi is standing right here." She pointed to Issei, and Kazuhana raised an eyebrow. Akitsu for some reason wanted to flash freeze the annoying woman in front of her for attacking her Ashikabi. Is this true, Issei-kun? Are you this anti-flasher's future Ashikabi? Issei shrugged in a very non-committal way. He was starting to lose track of the conversation. I have been having really strange dreams about her. And I have been having nightmares about these as well. Thou wishes to violate my person. So I must destroy thee. Look, I want nothing more than to be rid of those crazy dreams too. Kazuhana, what do you think? Kazuhana smirked. She was gonna have some real fun on this trip after all. Oh, I think it's fate, Issei-kun. Those dreams are her subconscious crying out for you to make her yours. Body and soul. It definitely means you're her master. She winked at him suggestively. Or maybe it's just your mind warning you that if you wing this little tease. She points to Tsukimi. You'll get nothing but grief and no white times at all. Judging by her choice of clothing. She probably makes a habit of teasing and threatening Ashikabi in the hopes that one of them will actually break her resistance and take her. Issei narrowed his eyes at Kazuhana's words. I don't. Tsukiyumi interrupts him. What? I never have. How can you even say such a thing? This Ashikabi wants me. He's sending me those strange dreams, but I'll never give in to his lusts. That's not even a question. HMPH. I can tell just by looking at him that he wants to do all sorts of perverted things to me. Tsukiyumi blushed a little at the thoughts of what Issei might do to her helpless body. Her arms now wrapped around her abdomen did more to enhance her body's quality than hide it. And since we're on the subject of clothes, what kind of underwear do you wear? My panties aren't the ones on trial here, Panty Flasher-chan. Issei. Let's go. This Sekirei doesn't even know what she wants. And she obviously doesn't deserve a real Ashikabi like you. Kazuhana, taking Issei's hand in hers, began leading Issei away from a stunned Tsukiyumi. She looks at Akitsu. But you can come along since you were going to protect him. She smiles and clings to Issei's other hand. A slight shudder passed through Kazuhana's body at the touch of Issei's hand. She obviously only wants to make you think she'll do naughty things, but once you actually get her in the sack, I'll bet she'll just give you a shoulder colder than a bucket of ice water and fall asleep. Even Issei was speechless at Kazuhana's declaration of Tsukiyumi's alleged frigidity. I will not. Tsukiyumi looked genuinely shocked at Kazuhana's impugning of her character as a Sekirei. You'll what? Pretend you like Issei, then just be a cold fish when he tries to get intimate. Kazuhana continued her provocation of the water mistress. Akitsu continues to glare at her for attacking Issei. Please, don't try to make fools of us. Come on, Issei. I'm getting bored of this conversation. She'll never take the bull by the horns. She's just a scared little bird that's much too frightened to claim what's rightfully hers. Akitsu didn't want the water witch to take away her master, so she fed him. Issei was surprised by the woman until he reciprocated and felt a deep connection between them. He saw all she had to suffer through since her time as a lab rat at MBI to her tuner, making her a broken Sekirei. The two didn't notice the bishop piece entering her soul once it did, her true power was released. Between Issei's deep attraction for the woman in front of him and the power boost from the bishop, a piece within Akitsu released the mark on her forehead. Wings of ice appeared on her back and her skin developed blue scales on her arms and legs. Her wings of ice became actual wings that froze the air around them, and ice began to form on the ground around them, both as they ed. Kazuhana and Tsukiyumi were surprised by this, and Kazuhana felt the warmth in her chest grow even hotter than before. She turned to see the water mistress and laughed at her. Seems the icy one was able to beat you to the punch. Like I said, you're a scared little bird who is too scared to claim what's rightfully yours. I'll show you who's scared. Tsukiyumi grabbed Issei and pushed Akitsu away. I accept being your Sekirei. She was very passionate about him. Issei was quickly knocked out of his shocked state by Tsukiyumi's bold maneuver, and he instinctively wrapped his arms around her waist. Beautifully intricate blue wings composed entirely of microscopic water droplets blasted their way out of Tsukiyumi's back. A pawn piece flew from Issei's pocket and entered Tsukiyumi's soul and gave her wings and scales that matched the color of her wings. The itself lasted for several long minutes before the two came down gradually from the romance-induced high. There now thou must take responsibility, Issei-kun. A surprising and absolutely adorable blush reddened the water mistress's cheeks as she spoke in a rather timid voice. I am your wife now. Akitsu grabbed his arm and glared at her. I'm his wife as well. Congratulations, Issei-kun. You winged another one. Kazuhana laughed into her hand. Issei scowled at Kazuhana, who he now realized had intended to goad Tsukiyumi into winging herself from the outset. Let's see. By my count, you have 5 wives now. Really, really manly, Ashikabi-kun. She leaped off the roof in the direction of Izumo. Musical laughter flowing behind her. I'll have to talk with Miya about being a member of his peerage and flock. Tsukiyumi stood frozen at Kazuhana's announcement that she was now one of many. And she wasn't even at the top of the list. Akitsu smiles coyly at the water pawn since she was Issei's fourth Sekirei. Issei walked over to her. Hey, it's okay. We'll figure something out. Maybe, I can figure out how to unwing you. That way you can find another Ashikabi. What? Are you trying to renege on your responsibilities? No, absolutely not. Good. Tsukiyumi paused for a moment. You have 4 Sekirei already? Issei nodded. Akitsu is still hanging on his arm while Tsukiyumi glares at her before looking at Issei. Then I guess I better meet them. Make sure they understand their place. Oh, what does that mean? That means your concubines must be made aware that I am now your honorable wife. And that I am the one who will feed and bathe thee as is a wife's duty. As well as her blush returned. Other duties to make sure my husband is satisfied. Well, we might be getting a bit ahead of ourselves. I think we need to get back to Izumo Inn first. I have a feeling that a very long discussion is definitely in order. He jumped away from Tsukiyumi, who stared wide-eyed as he jumped to the next roof just as easily as Kazuhana had done a moment before. She followed closely behind him. Izumo Inn. Mia knew that Issei would never cheat on her or bring other people here without reason, so it surprised her when Issei came in with 2 Sekirei that were already transformed into their dragon form. Which led to Issei and Mia talking in the kitchen while Akitsu and Tsukiyumi waited in the living room alongside Kazuhana, Kagari, and Yuzume. Akitsu asked them. Will he be alright? I feel like this is my fault. Yuzume gave her a pat on the back. It's not your fault. We heard about your condition from a friend of ours and we're sorry for what you had to go through. Kagari nods as did Kazuhana. The door opens to reveal a calm Mia and Issei with a bit of sweat going down his neck. Mia looked at the two and asked. Who are you? Akitsu went first. Sekirei number 7. Akitsu, the Eye Sekirei. Issei Haidu second bishop. Tsukiyumi went next. Sekirei number 9. Tsukiyumi, the Water Sekirei. Issei Haidu's first pawn. Mia looked at them and then at Issei, who nodded. She sighs before looking at Kazuhana. You're reacting to him, aren't you? The Wind Sekirei nodded and Issei grabbed Mia's hand and looked her in the eyes. I love you, no matter what. You were my first Sekirei and my queen, I will not abandon you. He uttered softly and Mia at back. The bright purple wings grew in size and power. Mia feels the love that he holds for her and knows that he wouldn't betray her for another woman. Mia saw Kazuhana control herself and when they detached from each other, she flung herself to Issei and pinned him to the floor. I can't stop this feeling. I need you, Issei. Please accept me, for I know I'm not perfect, but please accept my love for you. Issei pulls her in and sees her. Kazuhana can feel her old love leave her heart and all she feels is the connection between her and her Ashikabi, not the man she chose to give all of herself to. A pawn floated from his peerage set and entered her body. As they end, Kazuhana's body becomes more draconic with purple scales and the wind picks up in the room. When they separated, Mia explained that since she was the queen, she would sleep with Issei first and the others would have their chance. The girls agreed and Issei was happy to be a part of the planning since the girls would constantly fight over him, but seeing how they had a compromise warmed his heart. After dinner, they decided it was best to have a war council. Minato and his Sekirei joined in as well since it only made sense. They were a part of the game. Issei took charge. Alright, with the Sekirei plan currently in the first phase we can relax for now, the fighting won't happen until we reach the second phase. Right now there are 4 people who are the strongest, this is shown by the number of Sekirei in their flock. However, 2 of them don't really see them as people, but disposable pieces. Matsu. Matsu nodded and took over. She typed on her computer and 3 images showed up. A slim teenager of average height with brown hair. He wore a white formal attire that represented his wealth. This is the Ashikabi of the south, Mikagami Hayato. He may seem childish, but don't let his appearance fool you, he's very smart. He believes this to be the ultimate game and isn't afraid to use his Sekirei to harm others just to get what he wants. Everyone was disgusted by this and Minato motioned for her to continue. Matsu nods. His Sekirei appear to be number 15 Himeko, number 38 and number 39, Mitsuha and Mitsuki, number 103, Jusa, and finally, Momo. Most of them appear to be weapon users, so we might have little difficulty with them. The second was brought up. He was a normal-sized young gentleman, wearing an elaborate pure white suit with a white shirt underneath and a black tie. Biga Izumi. The Ashikabi of the East. He's utter scum. He acts all serious and doesn't give a damn about Sekirei. He has no qualms about forcing other Sekirei into obeying him and turning them against each other with carefully constructed lies. He even is willing to capture other Ashikabi and force their Sekirei to work for him. His motives hint that he may be intending to take over MBI, they have been a major thorn in his side for a long time. He doesn't tolerate his Sekirei failing their mission or disobeying him. This makes it possible for him to break the rules without any traces, which could indicate his involvement in the illegal and immoral actions he has ordered. He's also a silver-tongued serpent, lying and deceiving others until he no longer has use for any of them. Issei personally wanted to beat the bastard to death for what he's doing. Minato personally wanted to punch the guy in the face. Matsu continued. His Sekirei that he's winged are number 62K, number 85 Ashino, Kuju, and number 79. That's not counting the other Sekirei that he's threatened to work for out of fear. The last image came up as a blank. Unfortunately, the last one. The Ashikabi of the West is completely unknown. The only thing we have is his Sekirei that he's winged. Not forced, but they actually reacted to him. Matsu brings up the images. His first were number 11 and 12 Hibiki and Hikari. They were originally going to be winged by an ex-employee of MBI, but they learned he was a complete loser and ditched him. They are known as the Raiden Duo, since they can control lightning. Unfortunately, they need to be together to release their full power. Issei and Minato were impressed and laughed a bit when they heard of how they ditched their old Ashikabi. More images of Sekirei came up. Number 17 Yuna. Number 14 Chiyo. Number 20 Hadi. Number 65 Taki. Number 73 Namiji. Number 86 Katsuragi. Number 72 Natsu. Number 19 Iki. And number 95 Kuno. Everyone was surprised that this Ashikabi got a large number of them. Issei was the one who spoke first. If we're fighting him, then we need reinforcements. We can't reveal too much of our hand yet in the second plan. If we did, then they'd be ready for us. The voice broke the silence. No need to worry. I'm here to help my Ashikabi. Everyone got their guard up when they heard the voice until it spoke again. Wait. I'm not your enemy. I'm actually reacting to my master. I'm in his shadow right now. Hold on for a second. Issei's shadow moved until it extended to reveal a group of Sekirei with a leader as the dark-skinned one. She walked over to Issei and hugged him. It's good to see you again, Issei. Issei was shocked until he said. I remember. Yours. I spoke to you after I took my exam. Yahin nodded. I'm glad you remember me. As for the situation, there were actually a few Sekirei that have been reacting to you, but have been waiting for you to get away from the scary queen. Miya glares at her before whacking her with her ladle. Yahin has a bump on her head. Please inform me when you're trailing my Ashikabi and husband. Tsukiyumi blushed. What Kazuhana has a Cheshire grin on her face as she watches this. The others sat by and watched the show. Issei saw the others and calmed down Miya and Yomi. Why don't we hear the others out? They are with Yahin and I can sense they're unwinged, so no need to worry about them being a threat. Miya and Yahin complied and sat down, waiting for the others to introduce themselves. Number 43. Yomi. Number 22. Kachim. Number 101. Areha. Number 84. Yashima. Issei remembered reading about them. So the Death Scythe Sekirei. The second most intellectual Sekirei out of all 108. The Chakram user. And the Hammer Sekirei. Do you wish to join us? I won't abuse you, nor will I force you to do things that you don't want to do. The girls were happy and threw themselves into Issei's arms. Miya saw how they looked at him and was happy that they reacted to him out of love since they were watching him from afar and learned who he was personality-wise. Yahin was also gathering information on both the other Ashikabi and had some news she wanted to share with them. Issei asked each of them and reincarnated them as a pawn. So now he has 6 pawns, a knight, both bishops, a rook, and a queen. Issei looked back at Yomi. So what's this information you have on my old team? Yahin reached in her chest to pull out a flash drive and inserted it into the computer. It played the entire meeting, and Issei wasn't that impressed by the members that the girls replaced him with. Miya knew what the girls looked like and was mentally preparing to sharpen her sword for some annoying brats who hurt her husband. After hearing the meeting, Issei was excited at the thought of a world ratings game. The others looked excited as well and wanted to have some fun. In the east, the Ashikabi was on a hill watching his rival relax and enjoy his time as their Ashikabi. He smirked when he saw them get along like a family. Looks like you were able to find happiness here instead of back home. I can only imagine the Phoenix and Valkyrie waiting to hear about this. The woman came to the rooftop and tapped his shoulder. He turned to see Chiyo. Chiyo came up and spotted her with her new vision. So that's your rival, huh? Can't wait to meet him. I still can't believe you wanted us to be a part of your peerage for the world rating games. He looked at her and said, I'm surprised you and the others were more than happy to join. Hey, after the training you put us through, the other Sekirei are pathetic and weak. True. Let's get down. I can hear Hibiki and Hikari calling us for dinner. Don't want to make those two mad. Chiyo giggles as she thinks of him getting zapped again. It was priceless and it didn't even affect you, no need to worry. Ashikabi laughed. I suppose you're right. Let's go to Chiyo. You got it, Vali. My Ashikabi. The two descended as they didn't notice a woman was standing on a building looking down at her Ashikabi. She was a tall sekirei with messy silver-colored hair and grey eyes. She was a very tall girl and sadly flat, and because of that most think of her as a boy rather than a girl. She was equipped with a sword. Her outfit consists of black pants and a long-sleeved shirt of the same color. The shirt is open in the front, stopping just a few inches below her solar plexus, with crisscrossing bands of leather forming an X. The sleeves near her shoulders have a single band around them. Sitting almost lazily on her waist is a belt that looks more like an accessory than an actually functioning one. It sits slightly askew, the left side riding lower on her hip than the right, and the ends are tied together by a leather string. The only other distinguishing features about her clothing is the black fingerless gloves she wears and the orange scarf she wraps around her neck and shoulders. My Ashikabi. I, Mutsu, the Earth Sekirei shall protect you in my territory. Please wait for me. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Nefarious Doctor for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.